speaking on the subject, preventing nuclear war, Dr. Petr Beckmann. Dr. Beckmann.
Thank you, Mr. Armour. Ladies and gentlemen, the last time I talked to your society on the occasion of a dinner at a time when the council of your society was in session, was in Los Angeles, I believe 2.5 years ago, and at that time I talked about the question of nuclear power, how it is being used to brainwash people, and how the anti-nukes, which in those days meant anti-nuclear power, had conquered the high moral ground fraudulently, when in fact nuclear power was something that greatly reduced the risks that we are facing now. Where have all these anti-nukes in the meantime gone? Well, you know very well that they've reappeared as anti-nukes, now means anti-nuclear weapons. In other words, preventing nuclear war by unconditional surrender. What these people want, how they are organized, all of their organizations, I will not go into for a very good reason. For one thing, this literature is easily accessible. For example, in the current issue of Commentary, there is an article by the Soviet dissident Vladimir Bukovsky, who describes the orchestration of all this by the World Peace Council, but above all, you have your own John Rees, who claims to be only one, but I believe there must be 100 of them, one to write or to organize the interviews and the review of the news every week, and one to write into American Opinion, and one to manage Western goals and so on. But the one that I'm talking about now is the one who, with his wife and daughter, I understand, publishes Information Digest, which gives a detailed and complete rundown of 43 of these organizations, and I can not only shake my head in wonder, but also breathe in gratitude that at a time when Senator Church and other do-gooders manacled the FBI and blindfolded the CIA, there was at least one man, John Rees, who kept America's eyes and ears open. And in the presence of such a man, but even if you were not present, I would not presume to try and repeat what he has done, and I refer you to his work with two little remarks. One is that the Council of Peace, the word council, you may not know it, you may not realize it, but you all know the Russian for the word council. It is Soviet, or in American pronunciation, Soviet or Soviet, and I suggest that we do not lose these little nuances that get lost in translations, and we not call them the World Peace Council, but the World Peace Soviet. My second remark is that I have a little experience with the World Peace Soviet. I was hired by them on several occasions as an simultaneous interpreter from Russian into English, hired not for money, but in those days, in the 1950s, under Stalin, for the rare privilege of going abroad. I did translate for them in Warsaw and Moscow and East Germany and Hungary, and one occasion even in Vienna. In those days it was a very rare privilege to go from one cell into another of the same prison. In any case, what I translated there of this World Peace Soviet was not very peaceful. It was the days of Korea, and delegation after delegation talked about the great army of peace, which was the North Korean army, and the warmongers, the American imperialists, and their running dogs, the South Koreans, and how peace will conquer war with the help of the leader of nations, the great Josef Vissarionovich Stalin, and so on. This is the World Peace Soviet, the same organization that is now orchestrating the peace offensive. In case I impress you that I can translate from Russian into English, I must disappoint you, because after an hour or two of translating such speeches, you would be able to translate them from Swahili or Zulu or any other language in the world. Now then, let's take a closer look at who these people are. These people who are well known from the anti-nuclear power movement, such as the physicians of social responsibility, I would not presume to rely on evidence and hearsay. Let them speak for themselves. One of the best known, and one who gets a double spread in Time and in Newsweek for Physicians for Social Responsibility, is the alleged doctor, alleged because I have my doubts that a doctor can make statements about uranium and radioactivity and so on of the type that she makes. In any case, her statements have been published several times by the well-known newspapers Pravda and Izvestia, because as a member of the United States National Peace Soviet, she has visited the Soviet Union, but on this occasion she gave an interview to a reporter of Pravda, who wrote about the peace-loving America, not only the warmongers but also the peace-loving America, and knowing that the Soviet people are not even allowed to read the lies of Slime and Newspeak, but only those of their own press, she told the Soviet reporter the following: the USA has now accumulated an awesome quantity of nuclear bombs, but the Pentagon continues their production. Our politicians have long ago turned into obedient puppets of the military-industrial complex. The noisy jabber about the Soviet threat begins every time the Pentagon adopts a new system of mass annihilation into its arsenal. We received a telegram by President Brezhnev in reply to our appeal to end the arms race. Soviet physicians immediately supported our movement, and so on. Here are some more samples. Here is another peace lover, George Kistiakovsky, who I believe was President Eisenhower's science advisor. He is now a Harvard professor of chemistry, a non-physician with much social irresponsibility, who told Pravda's correspondent, this is out of Pravda, 1st December 1980, many years of work in government have convinced me that it is always the United States that takes the first step on the road of escalating the nuclear threat. And we have no reason to hypocritically claim that we strive for peace and disarmament. As an expert, I declare that the MX, the Pershings, and the cruise missile are nothing but nuclear weapons for a first strike. It is irresponsible and criminal. And here is Helen Caldicott again, this time in English. August 1981, the Russians are okay to work with. The US has many military bases around the world, whereas Russia does not. And if you think you didn't hear right, here it comes again, December 1981. The US has 200 major military bases in 45 nations. The USSR has none. Russia is surrounded by hostile nations with nuclear weapons, and America is surrounded by none. I don't know why they, the Russians, are not going mad. So this is the type of a person who is interested in peace, in the peace movement. What are the methods of these people? We recognize the two elements that have proven so very successful in their fight against nuclear power. Number one, fear of the unknown based on ignorance, particularly, again, with radiation. A typical example, I will in a moment, I hope, come to the technical nonsense that these people are spreading about war, masquerading or abusing very often, especially these physicians, their medical degrees as if they were giving medical advice. Typical example where they use fear is the irradiation of a nuclear bomb, not the fallout, that also, I'll come to that also, but the immediate radiation, calculating how horrible this is, and not mentioning that, for example, in Hiroshima, where some 70,000 people are estimated to have died from the heat and the blast, only a few hundred died of this radiation. For a good reason, because to get a high enough dose of radiation, you must be very close to and without shelter to the explosion of a bomb. Well, most people who are in that situation are killed by the blast or by the heat. And what these people do to frighten people is not tell them the truth, because blast and heat, everybody understands that this is dangerous and that this kills people. But radioactivity, which has very little relevance here, is of course something that frightens them, in genetic mutations and deformed children and so on. So one method is fear. And the other method that has paid them very, very well and is still not realized is that they appeal to the better parts of human nature. Now this is something that they have in common with communists. Communism is not quite the same thing as Nazism. The Nazis were thugs and hooligans, but they made no bones about it. They appealed to the worst parts of human nature. If you look at their songs and their glorification of war and so on, they were vulgar thugs. The communists, of course, are hooligans and thugs of exactly the same or almost exactly the same type, with one difference. They appeal to the better parts of human nature. They promise them brotherhood among the nations, they promise them social justice, end of exploitation, no more wars, no racism, we are all brothers, and so on. And by this, they fulfill a basic human need for some kind of virtue and morality. And this is exactly what these people are doing. They did this in their fight against nuclear power. We are the people who are for safety, and you are the people who put profits over human lives and so on. And this paid off very well, and they're doing this again. They are appealing to the natural yearning for peace and to the aversion against war. And they come around with a story that this war will be the suicide of mankind, and this is the total end of everything, in which they are, of course, aided by the nonsensical strategy or non-strategy of mutual assured destruction.